George Michael Steinbrenner III, born Independence Day 1930 and passed July 13, 2010, was an American businessman who was the principal owner and managing partner of Major League Baseball's New York Yankees from 1973 until his death in 2010. He was the longest-serving owner in club history, and the Yankees won 7 World Series championships and 11 American League pennants under his ownership. His outspokenness and role in driving up player salaries made him one of the sport's most controversial figures. Steinbrenner was also involved in the Great Lakes and Gulf Coast shipping industry. Known as a hands-on baseball executive, Steinbrenner earned the nickname the Boss. He had a tendency to meddle in daily on-field decisions, and to hire and fire and sometimes rehire managers. Former Yankees manager Dallas Green gave him the derisive nickname Manager George. He died after suffering a heart attack in his Tampa home on the morning of July 13, 2010, the day of the 81st All-Star Game. The Yankees are currently owned by Yankee Global Enterprises, for which Steinbrenner's 4 children have served as general partners. George Steinbrenner was born in Rocky River, Ohio, the only son of Rita and Henry George Steinbrenner II. His mother was an Irish immigrant who had changed her name from Haley to Haley. His father was of German descent and had been a world-class track and field hurdler while at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, from which he graduated in engineering in 1927, first in his class and a distinguished scholar in naval architecture. The elder Steinbrenner later became a wealthy shipping magnate who ran the family firm operating freight ships hauling ore and grain on the Great Lakes. George III was named after his paternal grandfather, George Michael Steinbrenner II. Steinbrenner had 2 younger sisters, Susan and Judy. At age 9, the elder Steinbrenner staked George to a couple of hundred chickens, and he peddled hens and their eggs door to door. "I learned a lot about business from raising chickens," he told Sports Illustrated. "Half of my customers began buying because they were afraid of me." In 1944, Steinbrenner entered Culver Military Academy in northern Indiana, graduating in 1948. He received his BA from Williams College in 1952. While at Williams, George was an average student who led an active extracurricular life. He was a member of Delta Kappa Epsilon fraternity. He was an accomplished hurdler on the varsity track and field team, and served as sports editor of the Williams Record, played piano in the band, and played halfback on the football team in his senior year. He joined the United States Air Force after graduation, was commissioned a second lieutenant, and was stationed at Lockburn Air Force Base in Columbus, Ohio. Following honorable discharge in 1954, he did postgraduate study at The Ohio State University, earning his master's degree in physical education. He met his wife-to-be, Elizabeth Jones Eag, in Columbus, and married her on May 12, 1956. The couple had 2 sons, Hank and Hal, and 2 daughters, Jessica Steinbrenner and Jennifer Steinbrenner Swindle. The Steinbrenners also have numerous grandchildren. All 4 of the Steinbrenners' children eventually got divorced, some multiple times, resulting in several former in-laws being removed from the Yankees' management. While studying at Ohio State, George Steinbrenner served as a graduate assistant to Buckeye football coach Woody Hayes. The Buckeyes were undefeated national champions that year, and won the Rose Bowl. Steinbrenner served as an assistant football coach at Northwestern University in 1955, and at Purdue University from 1956 to 1957. Steinbrenner joined Kinsman Marine Transit Company in 1957, the Great Lakes shipping company that his great-grandfather Henry had purchased in 1901 from the Minch Transit Company, which was owned by a family relation, and renamed. Steinbrenner worked hard to successfully revitalize the company, which was suffering hardship during difficult market conditions. In its return to profitability, Kinsman emphasized grain shipments over ore. A few years later, with the help of a loan from a New York bank, Steinbrenner purchased the company from his family. He later became part of the group that purchased the American Shipbuilding Company, and in 1967 he became its chairman and chief executive officer. By 1972, the company's gross sales were more than $100 million annually. In 1960, against his father's wishes, Steinbrenner entered the sports franchise business for the first time with basketball's Cleveland Pipers of the National Industrial Basketball League in IBL. Steinbrenner had hired John McClendon, who became the first African-American coach in professional basketball, and persuaded Jerry Lucas to join his team instead of the rival National Basketball Association. The Pipers switched leagues to the new professional ABL in 1961. The new circuit was founded by Abe Saperstein, owner of the Harlem Globetrotters. The league and its teams experienced financial problems, and McClendon resigned in protest halfway through the season. However, the Pipers had won the first half of a split season. Steinbrenner replaced McClendon with former Boston Celtics star Bill Sharman, and the Pipers won the ABL championship in 1961-62. The ABL folded in December 1962, just months into its second season. Steinbrenner and his partners lost significant money on the venture, but Steinbrenner paid off all of his creditors and partners over the next few years. With his burgeoning sports aspirations put on hold, Steinbrenner turned his attention to the theater. His involvement with Broadway began with a short-lived 1967 play, The 90-Day Mistress, in which he partnered with another rookie producer, James M. Nederlander. Whereas Nederlander threw himself into his family's business full-time, Steinbrenner invested in a mere half-dozen shows, including the 1974 Tony Award nominee for Best Musical, Seesaw, and the 1988 Peter Allen flop, Legs Diamond. The Yankees had been struggling during their years under CBS ownership, which had acquired the team in 1965. In 1972, CBS chairman William S. Paley told team president E. Michael Burke the media company intended to sell the club. As Burke later told writer Roger Kahn, Paley offered to sell the franchise to Burke if he could find financial backing. Steinbrenner, who had participated in a failed attempt to buy the Cleveland Indians from Vernon Stuffer 1 year earlier, and who had been an investor in Buffalo's failed 1969 Major League Baseball expansion bid, was brought together with Burke by veteran baseball executive Gabe Paul. On January 3, 1973, Steinbrenner and minority partner Burke led a group of investors, which included Nederlander, Lester Crown, John DeLorean, Nelson Bunker Hunt and Marvin L. Warner, in purchasing the Yankees from CBS for years. The selling price was reported to be $10 million. However, Steinbrenner later revealed that the deal included 2 parking garages that CBS had bought from the city, and soon after the deal closed, CBS bought back the garages for $1.2 million. The net cost to the group for the Yankees was therefore $8.8 million. The announced intention was that Burke would continue to run the team as club president. But Burke later became angry when he found out that Paul had been brought in as a senior Yankee executive, reducing his authority, and quit the team presidency in April 1973. Burke remained a minority owner of the club into the following decade, but as fellow minority owner John McCullen stated, "There is nothing in life quite so limited as being a limited partner of George Steinbrenner." Paul was officially named president of the club on April 19. It would be the first of many high-profile departures with employees who crossed paths with the boss. At the conclusion of the 1973 season, 2 more prominent names departed. Manager Ralph Houck, who resigned and took a similar position with the Detroit Tigers, and general manager Lee MacPhail, who became president of the American League. The 73 offseason would continue to be controversial when Steinbrenner and Paul fought to hire former Oakland Athletics manager Dick Williams, who had resigned immediately after leading the team to its second straight World Series title. However, because Williams was still under contract to Oakland, the subsequent legal wrangling prevented the Yankees from hiring him. On the first anniversary of the team's ownership change, the Yankees hired former Pittsburgh Pirates manager Bill Verdon to lead the team on the field. Steinbrenner quickly became famous for his rapid turnover of management personnel. In his first 23 seasons, he changed managers 20 times. Billy Martin alone was fired and rehired 5 times. During his first 26 years with the club, he went through 13 publicity directors. The first time George fires you, it's very traumatic, oft-fired Yankees flack Harvey Green said. The 3 or 4 times after that, it's like, great. I've got the rest of the day off. He also employed 11 general managers over 30 years. He was equally famous for pursuing high-priced free agents and then feuding with them. In July 1978, Billy Martin famously said of Steinbrenner and his $3 million outfielder Reggie Jackson, the two were meant for each other. One's a born liar and the other's convicted. The comment resulted in Martin's first departure, though officially he resigned tearfully before Yankees president Al Rosen could carry out Steinbrenner's dictum to fire him. During the 1981 World Series, Steinbrenner provided a colorful backdrop to the Yankees' loss of the series. After a Game 3 loss in Los Angeles, Steinbrenner called a press conference in his hotel room, showing off his left hand in a cast and various other injuries that he claimed were earned in a fight with 2 Dodgers fans in the hotel elevator. Nobody came forward about the fight, leading to the belief that he had made up the story of the fight to light a fire under the Yankees. After the series, he issued a public apology to the city of New York for his team's performance, while at the same time assuring the fans that plans to put the team together for 1982 would begin immediately. He was criticized heartily by players and press alike for doing so, as most people felt losing in the World Series was not something requiring an apology. George Steinbrenner enforced a military-style grooming code. All players, coaches, and male executives were forbidden to display any facial hair other than mustaches except for religious reasons, and scalp hair could not be grown below the collar. Long sideburns and mutton chops were not specifically banned. The policy led to some unusual and comical incidents. During the 1973 home opener against the Cleveland Indians, as the Yankees, caps removed, were standing at attention for the national anthem, Steinbrenner, in the owner's box next to the New York dugout, noticed that several players' hair was too long for his standards. As he did not yet know the players' names, he wrote down the uniform numbers of the offenders: Thurman Munson, Bobby Mercer, and Sparky Lyle, and had the list, along with the demand that their hair be trimmed immediately, delivered to Houck. The order was reluctantly relayed to the players. In 1983, at Steinbrenner's behest, Yankee coach Yogi Berra ordered Goose Gossage to remove a beard he was growing. Gossage responded by shaving away the beard but leaving the thick, exaggerated mustache extending down the upper lip to the jawline, a look Gossage still sports to this day. The most infamous incident involving facial hair occurred in 1991. Although Steinbrenner was suspended, Yankees management ordered Don Mattingly, who was then sporting a mullet-like hairstyle, to get a haircut. When Mattingly refused, he was benched. This led to a huge media frenzy with reporters and talk radio repeatedly mocking the team. The WPIX broadcasting crew of Phil Rizzuto, Bobby Mercer, and Tom Seaver lampooned the policy on a pre-game show, with Rizzuto playing the role of a barber sent to enforce the rule. Mattingly would eventually be reinstated. Coincidentally, The Simpsons episode Homer at the Bat, which was filmed earlier that year, included Mattingly as a guest star who is suspended from play by Mr. Burns for his sideburns being too long, despite shaving the area of his head above where sideburns grow. In 1995, Mattingly again ran afoul of the policy when he grew a goatee. In 2005, after signing with the Yankees, former Boston Red Sox center fielder Johnny Damon, who was known for his Jesus-like beard and shoulder-length hair during his time with the Red Sox, said about the policy, "Without a doubt, George Steinbrenner has a policy and I'm going to stick to it. Our policy with the Yankees is to go out there and win, and we're going to try and bring another championship to them." Steinbrenner later noted, "He looks like a Yankee, he sounds like a Yankee, and he is a Yankee." Damon claimed he was already planning on cutting his hair after the 2005 season. The convicted, part of Billy Martin's famous 1978 Liar and Convicted comment, referred to Steinbrenner's connection to Richard Nixon. In 1974, Steinbrenner pleaded guilty to making illegal contributions to Nixon's re-election campaign, and to a felony charge of obstruction of justice. Faced with a cost overrun problem with the United States Commerce Department, Steinbrenner gave 6 of his American shipbuilding employees special bonuses of $25,000 and directed them to then turn around and personally donate the funds to Nixon's Committee for the Re-election of the President, known as CREEP. Steinbrenner originally said he would fight the charges in court, but in August 1974, 2 weeks after Nixon resigned, Steinbrenner pleaded guilty to 2 charges in the case. He was personally fined $15,000 and his company, American Shipbuilding, was assessed an additional $20,000. On November 27 of that year, MLB Commissioner Bowie Kuhn suspended him for 2 years, but later commuted it to 15 months. Ronald Reagan pardoned Steinbrenner in January 1989, one of the final acts of his presidency. After the 1980 season, George Steinbrenner made headlines by signing Dave Winfield to a 10-year, $23 million contract, making Winfield baseball's highest-paid player. In 1985, Steinbrenner derided Winfield's poor performance in a key September series against the Toronto Blue Jays. "Where is Reggie Jackson? We need a Mr. October or a Mr. September. Winfield is Mr. May. My big guys are not coming through. The guys who are supposed to carry the team are not carrying the team. They aren't producing. If I don't get big performances out of Winfield, Griffey and Baylor, we can't win." This was George Steinbrenner to New York Times sports writer Murray Chess. This criticism eventually became somewhat of an anachronism, as many believed Steinbrenner made the statement following the 1981 World Series. Part of that comment later led Ken Griffey Jr. to list the Yankees as one team for which he would never play. On July 30, 1990, Steinbrenner was banned permanently from day-to-day management but not ownership of the Yankees by MLB Commissioner Fay Vincent for paying a gambler named Howard Spira $40,000 to dig up dirt on Winfield. Winfield had sued the Yankees for failing to contribute $300,000 to his foundation, a guaranteed stipulation in his contract. Vincent originally proposed a 2-year suspension, but Steinbrenner wanted it worded as an agreement rather than a suspension to protect his relationship with the U.S. Olympic Committee. In exchange for that concession, Vincent made the agreement permanent. After considerable negotiation with Vincent's office, Robert Nederlander, one of Steinbrenner's theater partners and a limited partner in the Yankees organization, became the managing general partner. After Nederlander resigned in 1992, he was succeeded by Joe Malloy, George's son-in-law. In 2001, Winfield cited the Steinbrenner animosity as a factor in his decision to enter the Hall of Fame as a representative of his first team, the San Diego Padres, rather than the team that brought him national recognition, the Yankees. George Steinbrenner was reinstated in 1993. Unlike past years, he was somewhat less inclined to interfere in the Yankees' baseball operations. He left day-to-day baseball matters in the hands of Gene Michael and other executives, and allowed promising farm system players such as Bernie Williams to develop instead of trading them for established players. Steinbrenner's having got religion, in the words of New York Daily News reporter Bill Madden, paid off. After contending only briefly 2 years earlier, the 1993 Yankees were in the American League East race with the eventual champion Toronto Blue Jays until September. The 1994 Yankees were the American League East leaders when a player's strike wiped out the rest of the season. Similarly, a player's strike had in that instance aided their 1981 playoff effort. In 1995 the team returned to the playoffs for the first time since '81, and in 1996 they beat the Atlanta Braves in 6 games to win the World Series. They went on to series wins in '98, '99, and 2000, and fell short of the 4th straight title in 2001 with a 7th game loss to the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Yankees then made the playoffs every season through 2007. In 2003 they beat the Boston Red Sox to win the AL pennant but lost the World Series to the Florida Marlins, denying Steinbrenner, who had won the Stanley Cup in June of that year as part owner of the New Jersey Devils, the distinction of winning championships in 2 major sports leagues in the same year. In 2008, the Yankees ended their postseason run with a 3rd-place finish in the American League East. However, in 2009, the Yankees defeated the Philadelphia Phillies in the World Series to win a 27th championship, 7 of which had been won under Steinbrenner's ownership. George Steinbrenner named Steve Swindle, his son-in-law, to be his successor in June 2005. When Swindle and Jennifer Steinbrenner divorced in 2007, the Yankees bought Swindle out of his financial stake in the team, with Hal Steinbrenner succeeding Swindle as chairman of Yankee Global Enterprises. From 2006 to his death, George Steinbrenner spent most of his time in Tampa, Florida. After the 2007 season and the decision not to bring back manager Joe Torre, Steinbrenner was in poor enough health that he officially retired and handed control of the Yankees to his sons Hal and Hank Steinbrenner. After ceding day-to-day control of the team, Steinbrenner made few public appearances and gave no interviews. Associates and family members refused to comment on rampant speculation concerning his declining health, specifically rumors that he was suffering from Alzheimer's disease. A 2007 interviewer said, "He doesn't look all right. In fact, he looks dreadful. His body is bloated, his jawline has slackened into a triple chin, his skin looks as if a dry cleaner bag has been stretched over it." Steinbrenner's face, pale and swollen, has a curiously undefined look. His features seem frozen in a permanent rictus of careworn disbelief. The Yankees went to great lengths to prevent anyone outside Steinbrenner's immediate family and closest business associates from speaking to him, or even getting a glimpse of him on the rare occasions when he made an appearance at Yankee Stadium. Temporary curtains were set up to block views of his entry and exit routes, and no one was allowed near the vehicles transporting him. The press elevator carrying media members downstairs to the interview areas were shut down before he arrived, and again toward the end of the game while he departed. Steinbrenner made a rare appearance in the Bronx on the field for the 79th All-Star Game on July 15, 2008. Wearing dark glasses, he walked slowly into the stadium's media entrance with the aid of several companions, leaning upon one of them for support. He later was driven out onto the field along with his son Hal at the end of the lengthy pre-game ceremony in which the All-Stars were introduced at their fielding positions along with 49 of the 63 living Hall of Famers. In subsequent occasional visits to spring training, regular season games, and other outings, he used a wheelchair. On April 13, 2010, Derek Jeter and Joe Girardi privately presented the first 2009 World Series championship ring to Steinbrenner in his stadium suite. He was almost speechless, according to reports. George Steinbrenner's estimated net worth was $1.15 billion in 2009 according to the Forbes 400 list in Forbes magazine issued in September 2009. George Steinbrenner was the first owner of a baseball team to sell cable TV rights to MSG Network. On July 13, 2010, the morning of the 2010 Major League Baseball All-Star Game, George Steinbrenner died of a heart attack at St. Joseph's Hospital in Tampa, Florida. His death came 9 days after his 80th birthday, 2 days after the death of longtime Yankee Stadium public address announcer Bob Shepard, and 8 days before that of former Yankee manager Ralph Houck. On July 14, the Yankees announced that players and coaches would wear a Steinbrenner commemorative patch on the left breast of their home and road uniforms, and a Bob Shepard commemorative patch on the left arm. July 15 marked the Yankees' first home game at Yankee Stadium after both the All-Star break and Steinbrenner's passing. Prior to the game, the team presented a mural above the right center field bleachers in the late owner's honor, while closer Mariano Rivera laid a bouquet of flowers on home plate. The Steinbrenner family added a monument to Monument Park on September 20, 2010 to honor Steinbrenner. He is buried at Trinity Memorial Gardens in Trinity, Florida.